military secrets.
So you're directly conflicting your clause.
Could you mention the clause again?
Clause 1, subclause A.
Yeah, we're talking about the development, supply and deployment of such
No, you are talking about UN authorization.
Yes, UN-led authorization to approve the development, supply and development of such technologies. Can you please point out where it mentions anything about
when you say development, you are essentially saying that there's an upgrade in the military systems, in the military AI. A major military power would be not so reluctant to share its past or upcoming military secrets, or in the matter of fact, any kind of military advancement. Does the state of China or Republic of China agree to share its future developments in the space of military to the UN and to us? Because we are all the members of UN.
We do not believe that any sort of military secrets are important in the development of these.
Can the delegate of China reply to that? It's okay. Delegate of China. Sure.
I have two more questions. Can I ask?
No. 1 second. We'll entertain other
Delegate,
questions. Multiple followers have. 1 second. This is not. Ask.
You meant deployment or the development? It's deployment.
Well, the subclause clearly states deployment, development, and any.
No, it's a deployment.
It has development too. Are the sponsors not aware of their own clauses or subclauses at this point?
Okay, so my answer to delegation of Slovenia, I would like to question you that will you share your technologies and your military intelligence to the UN and to other countries?
I would like to point out, in comparison, in our stances, Slovenia is a country with 2 million population, whereas China stands as the #1 population with highest military power, followed by US and India. Do you possibly see who stands at the stage when it comes to development? In the recent years, US and China are the two major economies that have continuously invested in military advancements. While we, Slovenia, the state of Slovenia, has actively worked towards the right of climate change, the right of safe environment. We have actively worked on the human rights that are on this point being discussed in relations with AI.
Well, China strictly believes in the importance of state sovereignty, and China believes that there should not be westernized model. There should not be one fit global model for it. Every country has their own social, economic, political context regarding this.
So in that sense,
delegate, no more followers.
Delegate, if you have any problem, you can just send it via amendment.
We'll have to change the question and narrative later. Delegate of Germany, you had another question. Other delegates will recognize you, no worries.
Clause 4 mandates platforms to ensure automated detection, watermarks, and traceable of AI-generated sexual content. That's your 4th clause. Delegate which clause? 4th clause. 4A. My question, can the sponsors clarify how the requirements avoid mass surveillance concerns and false positives that may disproportionately affect activists, journalists, and women online? Could you explain your question, please? Can the sponsors clarify how this requirement avoids mass surveillance concerns and false positives that may disappropriately affect activists, journalists, and women online? No, I said explain, not repeat. I meant when we are talking about non-consensual sexual content, we're talking about pornographic content, how does
regulating that relate to journalists and the protection of journalists? I don't
Okay, I'll
understand.
make the question simpler.
Yes.
If you want to trace down the AI and understand where it is actually coming from, so you need to have data for that, and that requires surveillance, mass surveillance. So, are you standing for that, or are you? How will you detect from where the certain content is coming up from if you don't have data, and if you are maybe clearly against mass surveillance?
Every country or every major country on this planet has the ability to trace down where certain networks, certain data, and where the online users are posting online from. It's very easy to trace any sort of address of the person based on like what they post on the internet, and it's very easy for cyber security companies, especially government-led cyber security companies, to trace that person. This happens regularly even outside the realm of AI. In the realm of cyber security specifically, if a person, let's say hypothetically, were to make a sort of threat against the government, there have been many cases where the government has been able to track down the person. This sort of system already exists. This sort of system is already in place. We are just saying that this sort of system um, should be extended. Should be extended to keep the victims of sexual abuse online safe.
Just one small question, will mass surveillance happen? Because it will require data for you to trace down someone.
What is your definition of mass surveillance? Because if it is the idea that the government has some sort of info on the people living in that country, on the online activity of the people in that country, then yes, I think mass surveillance does exist in every single country, and it has existed till now since the internet was, I guess, formed. Since people started using the internet, it has existed till now. But if your idea of mass surveillance is using that information in any way to harm the people of that country, then no, I don't think so. Because we're using that information to protect the people.
Delegate, no more follow-ups. Delegate of Pakistan.
I'd like to talk about the seventh clause. Encourages global north states and other major holders of AI compute capacity and patents to address structural imbalance and AI power. That means all you countries are going to share your artificial intelligence with each other.
No, that means we are asking the global north to identify the gap that exists between the global north and the global south in AI development. Then we are asking them to, I guess, understand the imbalances basically.
In the seventh subclause, second, supervise patent licensing frameworks administrated through relevant United Nations mechanisms.
Yes.
That means there is a chance that you are gonna share your artificial intelligence with one another.
Not with one another, through United Nations mechanisms. So we're going to share it with the UN to make sure that the mechanisms that we're using and the algorithms that we're using are not biased to any sort of group to protect human rights.
That means there are many private companies, like for instance, take China's DeepSeek AI and Alibaba AI. These AI and deep research platforms and companies use private charts and all the information.
I'm afraid you're getting confused between generative AI and the AI used by these companies in war zones. We are not against generative AI. We think generative AI can be a very good tool in the medical field and in the educational field. What you're mentioning, DeepSeek, is a part of generative AI. What we're talking about is AI used by companies in war zones.
Okay. So this is not related to people.
Yes, it's not related to companies like DeepSeek, ChatGPT, Gemini, things like that.
Thank you, Delegate. Other points of information, please raise your placards. Italy followed by Netherlands and Slovenia and UK. That will be the final. And Thailand. Also sponsors for these POIs, please everyone answer it. Alright? Okay. Go ahead.
For the sponsors clarified why the resolution only refers to global north jurisdictions, while advanced military AI development has now occurs across multiple regions, including Asia, the Middle East, and Latin America. And right now, you even mentioned that you will give your AI and all those to United Nations also, to the delegation of Pakistan. Whereas you have not even mentioned about United Nations in your clause 3 and 7.
Could you clarify?
Your clause 3 and 7.
Could you clarify the question, please?
My question is, why is your clause 3 and 7 only mentioning about global north jurisdictions and United Kingdoms, not about other regions which are across multiple regions including Asia, Middle East and Latin America?
The truth is the global north, especially United Kingdoms, and I don't mean to target anyone here specifically, but the global north is heavily responsible for committing a lot of war crimes in the global south. We are particularly trying to evade that. We are trying to form some sort of regulation to avoid that. That is why we mention the global north. It's not a fact, it's not surprising that the global north is responsible behind some of the worst genocides committed in the global south. They're behind a lot of the atrocities committed in the global south. That is why we mention them specifically. Yes, Asia and Latin America can be responsible, but they're not responsible on as large of a level as the global north is, especially UK as we know their history.
So, would you still support UN when it comes to all this?
Yes, but that is not what our clause is about. Our clause specifically focuses on the global north. Yes, we would support it if it were to happen, but that is not what we're talking about.
Okay, Delegate, thank you. Next, Netherlands.
The delegation of Netherlands raises a question to this delegation.
Doesn't matter, just go ahead with the question.
So the question is, don't you think that I raised question to the the first clause, and subclause A is the second one. Don't you think that working on suspending authorization when civilian protection risks cannot be mitigated will only result in more number of risks to appear? Isn't that counterproductive?
I mean, can you be more specific?
Like you are revoking the authorization when you know you can't reduce the risks. That will in turn make more risks to appear.
Okay. See, we can't, I mean, one second. Okay. AI is specifically causing the harm. We are actually not reducing the authorization, and it is not actually. It is actually productive. It's in UN perspective.
Could you explain to me how it's productive?
I mean.
So, the resolution basically does not restrict the inherent right for the self-defense or the authorization of the other countries. But we are talking that we want to lessen the risk of the AI in our conflict zone areas. We are not basically talking about giving up the authorization to someone or reducing the authorization. We are still okay with the authorization over our countries, especially the UN framework.
Okay, no
Okay.
follow-ups.
Okay, understand.
Next delegate. Delegate Slovenia. No follow-ups, okay? Just one question, one answer.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. On that note, I would like to point out that the delegation of Slovenia has one individual question on two separate clauses. No, sorry, one question for each clause. Pointing out to clause 1, subclause B, that mandates that corporations be held accountable by UN oversight. By what legal mechanism does the UN, an organization of states, exercise direct criminal or civil jurisdiction over private companies? Is this not a fundamental misunderstanding of the guiding principles on business and human rights?
We ask for UN oversight to be present, not them to legally enforce any sort of laws. We are asking that the countries responsible and the countries where these corporations are held to hold them accountable. The UN is not going to hold them accountable. It is going to form a set of rules to which that they can be held accountable. They are the oversight, not the enforcers.
Exactly. UN is a member of states and private companies are part of states. So there is a clear jurisdictional barrier.
We're asking for the UN to form the rules to which these companies can be held accountable, but we ask that the countries where these corporations are located in, for their legal systems to hold these corporations accountable.
Okay, delegate.
Second question.
No, just one.
Not a follow-up, but another question.
No. If you have any amendment, you can send it via chat. Wait, delegate, let's take the other questions, and if we have time, we will take yours.
Thank you.
Next delegate of UK.
Okay, so the clause 1 and the subclause 2. A.
Yes?
Okay, so of this draft, which is implicitly conflicts with Article 51. So does India accept UN's interference overriding Article 51 self-defense?
Could you state Article 51, please?
Okay. Article 51 is the United Nations Charter. It recognizes the inherent right of individual of collective self-defense when armed attack occurs. Until the Security Council takes measure. I want the sponsor country India to answer. Are you okay, delegate?
I'm sorry, could you repeat?
Sorry, delegate, but we had to take care of that.
It's fine, I'll answer. I'm prepared, don't worry. Yes, please.
So under the clause 1, does India accept UN interference overriding Article 51 self?
Okay, so we've had two questions regarding Article 1, subclause A, subclause 2. So I think it's time we clarify that properly. When we say the UN should be revoking or suspending authorization where civilian protection risks cannot be effectively mitigated, we mean that if an AI war machine is deployed to a vulnerable situation, is deployed to a war zone, the authorization of these private companies to deploy this machinery, if it's going to cause harm to civilians, should be revoked. let me give another example. Let me relate it to something else. If there was a chimpanzee just running around killing civilians, even though it was originally meant to be like a soldier, for example, I think that is, I think it's important for like that chimpanzee in this sense to be removed from the war zone, to be removed from the battlefield. The chimpanzee in this sense is AI machinery. And we mean that in any situation, if AI machinery is causing harm on the battlefield, it should be revoked and it should be suspended. That's it.
My question was, does India accept? So it is either a yes or a no.
I cannot
The
answer for
delegate of
India.
India can answer that, yes. Yeah, he's not here. Delegate of Slovenia.
Just following up on what the delegation of
Yes.
Shekia
Just
mentioned.
one question, no more follow-ups.
One question.
Yeah.
It has the delegation has mention of revoking and suspending authorization. A two-part question: who has the authority to revoke or suspend? For clarification, who is revoking or suspending this authorization? Is it the UN? Is it the private companies or the state in which the private companies are?
The private companies are never going to revoke their own authorization. They're never going to suspend their own authorization. So it's not reasonable to ask them to do that. The UN also cannot legally enforce any sort of rules on these companies. But the countries which they're a part of, the government of those countries can in fact revoke their authorization. They do have legal power over these companies. The UN's responsibility is to form a framework around which the countries can form their laws.
And
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate of Thailand. That will be the last point of information.
So referring to clause 6A, which prohibits predictive profiling and biometric tracking of minors, how does the resolution address situations where such tools are currently used for missing child identification or anti-trafficking efforts for children and youth? Because you said that it prohibits predictive profiling.
Okay. When we say that we're going to prohibit predictive profiling, like I mentioned before, every country does have a database of their citizens. Every country has that. When we say that we want to protect that and we don't want our information going outside, we don't want data leaks, we mean that that information which our government inherently has, when we have like an Aadhaar card, for example, our government has our details. When we say that, we mean that the government does not lend out those details to any other countries or that information is not leaked out. However, in situations like you mentioned, I think it would be fair for the government to use such information for a net positive. When we say prohibiting predictive profiling or tracking, we mean that in the negative sense. We mean that the information that our government currently has on us is not used in a negative sense.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. We'll be now looking for delegates who are ready to speak against or for.
Personal privilege.
Yes, Delegate. You've been recognized. Another delegate. I'm assuming that's against. A delegate? No, sponsor not speak. Any other delegate who's ready to speak for this draft resolution? Yes. You can mention how certain points are good and how you support this draft. Nobody? Delegates? You do not even have to. Okay, great.
All right.
Delegate of Ghana. So first we'll go with delegate of UK. Just 60 seconds.
Honorable Chair, my esteemed
I am really sorry. Delegates, we are not accepting any chits right now. Thank you.
All chits have been suspended. Yes? Go ahead. Yes, delegate, go ahead.
Honorable Chair and esteemed delegates, this resolution is not human rights protection. It is institutional overreach disguised as morality. It demands a UN-controlled authorization mechanism over military AI, directly violating state sovereignty and the inherent right to self-defense. The UNHRC is a human rights body and not a global defense regulator. This clause alone makes the draft legally indefensible. The resolution then shifts battlefield accountability from states to private corporations, creating a dangerous loophole where states are the primary duty bearers. This draft rewrites that principle without mandates. Further, force technology sharing, patent licensing, and subsidies compute access amount of economic coercion. Innovation cannot survive when intellectual property is treated as an obligation rather than a right. This will slow AI development, not democratize it. Finally, the blanket criminalization and restriction proposed ignore real-world conflict realities. AI tools are already saving lives through early warning system, humanitarian logistics, and civil protection. Regulation will not protect the vulnerable, it will leave them more exposed. Honorable judges, this draft is ambitious, but ambition without feasibility is recklessness. For the legal outreach, economic impracticality, and operational blindness, this resolution must be rejected.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate of Ghana.
Honorable Chair and distinguished delegates. The draft resolution is a complete success. We can see right from clause 1, it has involved the member states and targeted the nations where the crime has originated. Also, the prior authorization, revoking and denial is complete correct if the authorization causes any civilian damage. It also talks about how AI is used in the battlefield, battlefield decision supporting systems, how global north states are exporting their technologies to the south, global south.
Delegates, no cross-talking, okay?
It has also urged the member states to criminalize the creation, possession, and dissemination of non-sexual AI-generated sexual content, which should be seen as that we are responsible to the maluse of AI-generated content. It also requests member states to provide obligations for the companies or private entities which are involved in the AI game. The UN already authorizes arms regimes through export controls, sanction committees, and peacekeeping mandates. This mechanism mirrors those precedents, not replacing sovereignty but conditional legitimacy.
Okay, thank you, Delegate. We will now be... Okay, delegates, we will now open the floor to amendments. All other chits have been suspended. Send us your amendment chit in the format that has been sent to the WhatsApp group.
Delegates, we have received a amendment chit. It is very unprofessional to use such language and send it to the EB. Kindly have formal language when you are writing chits, speeches, etc. We will be...
Amendment 1.1 to draft resolution 1.1. See, first of all, resolution is written here. It's not a resolution unless it has been passed. Alright? So draft resolution 1.1. Then state your amendment, either it's an addition, deletion, or an amendment. Okay? That's it. Do not add anything else. Go ahead.
Delegates, just raise your placards when I ask you this. Are you all clear on what is clause, subclause, sub-subclause? Please raise your placards. We have received it just now, which states Amendment 1 for Clause 1, Subclause 8. There is no Subclause 8. There is no Amendment 1. There is Clause 1. So we are sending back these checks through the volunteers. Please, delegates, make sure. Okay, and one more thing. All of you are mentioning Amendment 1.1 to Resolution 1.1. It's not required. Don't add it. Just directly move on. Mention. Yeah.
Addition clause, deletion clause, amendment clause as a head. If it's an amendment clause, put the original clause and then what you want to amend it to.
So the first amendment states that strike clause 1 from the resolution.
We take it as an unfriendly amendment.
All right. I would like to repeat the amendment. Strike clause 1 from the resolution.
Which will include the subclause and the sub-subclause.
Will we get a chance to explain the clause? Clause 1 calls upon the United Nations, in coordination with member states, to establish a binding regulatory framework for AI-enabled military and surveillance systems deployed in conflict settings, including creating a UN-led authorization mechanism to approve the development, supply, and deployment of such technologies, conditioning approval on demonstrable compliance with international human rights law and international humanitarian law, revoking or suspending authorization where civilian protection rights cannot be effectively mitigated.
All right, delegates, those who are for the clause, please raise your placards.
For striking the clause.
Yes, yes.
So if you raise your placard, that means you agree with the amendment to
Strike
strike
it
out
out.
this clause completely.
Correct.
This fails. This amendment won't be made. Any more amendments?
Delegates will be waiting for the next 2 minutes for any amendments. Yes, delegate of Germany. Yes, delegate.
Send the amendment sheet. I was confused, I'm sorry.
Yes, delegate.
If I strike the amendment part, I wrote amendment of clause 1, subclause 8, and I wrote what I wanted to inform. Is the correct procedure?
See, delegate, postpone. Can you move to, yeah. The subclause, the clause 1 has no subclause 8.
Subclause 8, sorry. Subclause 8, sorry.
So,
So you want to add, delete, or amend?
so when you're amending, kindly state the original statement and then write it to.
Delegates, we encourage you to send amendment sheets. Please go ahead. Read the document. Delegates, you will be marked on this too. That motivates you.
Delegates, there were a lot of POIs from delegate of Slovenia, delegate of Netherlands, delegate of UK, Ireland, all these POIs can be formed as amendments and sent to us. Delegate of Iceland.
Personal privilege.
Sure. Can you move to clause 9? Delegates, the amendment states that strike clause 9 from the draft resolution.
We take it as an unfriendly amendment.
So we'll be voting on this.
To restate clause 9, it calls upon member states, particularly data importing global north economies, to prohibit the extraction and commercial use of data collected from conflict-affected population for AI training and purposes, including requiring informed, freely given and revocable consent from affected individuals and communities, prohibiting consent obtained under conditions of coercion, displacement or humanitarian dependency, mandating enforceable benefit sharing arrangements where data use is authorized, and imposing penalties for unauthorized cross-border data exploitation.
Delegates, I hope all of you are paying attention. This is a very serious discussion, delegates. It is a draft resolution and I can see cross talking. I can see many delegates are unattentive. If you are not for the clause, please vote. Do you all understand? Are you with us? All right. So she'll be reading the clause again. If you're for striking the clause, we'll be having voting procedure after that. Thank you, delegates.
Ninth clause. Calls upon member states, particularly data importing global north economies, to prohibit the extraction and commercial use of data collected from conflict-affected populations for AI training purposes, including by requiring informed, freely given and revocable consent from affected individuals and communities, prohibiting consent obtained under conditions of coercion, displacement or humanitarian dependency, mandating enforceable benefit sharing arrangements where data use is authorized, imposing penalties for unauthorized cross-border data exploitation.
Delegates who wish to strike the clause, please raise your placards. This clearly fails, delegates. Are there any other amendments? Yeah. Clause 1A, subclause A, subclause 2. Clause
1, subclause A, subclause 2.
Subclause 2, revoking or suspending authorization where civilian protection risk cannot be effectively mitigated.
All right. The amendment states it is basically changing the clause to any review or suspension of AI authorization shall occur post-operation or post-conflict and shall not be enforced during active hostilities. I'm going to repeat it once again. It should be changed to any review or suspension of AI authorization shall occur post-operation or post-conflict and shall not be enforced during active hostilities. Vedika, just pass that up.
We take it as an unfriendly amendment.
We'll be voting on this delegates. All the delegates who wish to change it to these words, please raise your hands. Yes, this passes. This amendment has been
Are there any other amendments, delegates?
As we don't see any more sponsors, you can get back to your seat. Draft resolution 1.2, all the sponsors please come to the dais. We'll be voting on it.
Delegates, kindly maintain the decorum in the room and listen attentively. Yes, delegate. Yes, delegate. Delegates, please maintain decorum. Delegates, please maintain decorum. Yes, delegates, you can proceed.
delegates, this is the last draft resolution. Please pay attention.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. The operative clauses of Draft Resolution 1.2 are as follows. Clause 1 affirms that the use of artificial intelligence and mass surveillance technologies must, under all circumstances, comply with international human rights law and shall not be employed to enable arbitrary interference with privacy, discrimination, or suppression of fundamental freedoms. Clause 2 calls upon member states to adopt comprehensive and binding legal frameworks governing artificial intelligence systems, explicitly regulating high-risk and intrusive technologies. Clause 3 urges member states to impose an immediate moratorium on the deployment of AI-enabled real-time biometric identification and mass surveillance in public spaces until, subclause A, clear legal basis and democratic safeguards are established. Subclause B, independent human rights impact assessments demonstrate full compliance with international law. Subclause C, effective oversight and accountability mechanisms are operational. Clause 4 states, Clause 4 requests member states to establish or strengthen fully independent supervisory authorities empowered to, subclause A, authorize, monitor and audit AI and surveillance systems prior to and during deployment. Subclause B, suspend or prohibit technologies found to pose unacceptable human rights risk. Subclause C, ensure accessible, effective, and timely remedies for affected individuals. Subclause 5, Clause 5 emphasizes the necessity of algorithmic transparency and explainability by requiring that subclause A, individuals are informed when subject to automated decision making. Subclause B, meaningful explanations of decisions affecting rights are provided. Subclause C, automated systems impacting fundamental rights remain subject to human review. Clause 6 calls upon member states to enforce strict data protection standards by subclause A, limiting data collection to what is strictly necessary and proportionate. Subclause B, prohibiting indiscriminate and bulk data retention. Subclause C, ensuring secure processing, storage, and deletion of personal data. Clause 7 urges states to regulate private sector actors involved in artificial intelligence development and deployment through subclause A, mandatory human rights due diligence obligations, subclause B, civil, administrative, and criminal liability for human rights violation, subclause C, restrictions on the export of surveillance technologies to contexts that where they may facilitate repression. Clause 8 invites the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner of Human Rights to, subclause A, elaborate authoritative international guidelines on rights-based artificial intelligence governance. Subclause B, assist member states in legislative harmonization and capacity building. Subclause C, report annually to Council on global trends, risk, and compliance. Clause 9 encourages enhanced international cooperation aimed at establishing common global standards on intelligence consistent with a precautionary and human-centric approach. Clause 10 reaffirms the obligation of member states to protect journalists, civil society actors, and human rights defenders from unlawful digital surveillance and retaliation. Clause 11 decides to remain actively seized of the matter.
Thank you, Delegate. We open the floor to points of information. Delegate of Bangladesh,
Followed by Delegate of Czechia, followed by Delegate of Ghana, and Democratic Republic of the Congo. Yes, Delegate, you have the floor.
So under clause 1, what you mean is under all circumstances, human rights should be given preference than AI and mass surveillance. Is that what you mean? Under clause 1.
Could you please frame your question accurately?
Under clause 1, you meant that under all circumstances, human rights should be given preference than AI technologies and mass surveillance technologies.
To answering the delegation of Bangladesh, the clause does not, the clause is framed like this. It affirms that the use of artificial intelligence and mass surveillance technologies must and under all circumstances comply with international human rights laws and shall not be employed to enable arbitrary interference with privacy, discrimination, or suppression of fundamental freedoms. This clause by default says that AI mass surveillance will only be used when it is under compliance with all international human rights and will not be used to invade privacy or in any other matter that is against the human rights laws or freedom laws. Thank you.
So there is something called under emergency, you suspend all human rights. I mean not all, a very few, I'm sorry. A very few human rights. So do you think even at that time you want AI to comply with human rights?
Could you specify what kind of emergencies?
Like national emergency and financial emergency.
So,
even during that time you want, AI to comply with human rights?
I believe the agenda of the past 2 days committee is to make sure that AI is in compliance with human rights.
Yes, Delegate. Moving forward. Delegate of Czechia. Delegate also make the change and send the document.
To swing the question back, in clause 7, it is mentioned that clause 7 urges states to regulate private actors involved in artificial intelligence development and deployment through mandatory human rights obligations and criminal liability for human rights violations and restrictions on surveillance technologies, especially private sectors. Yes?
Yes.
So my question is, how do you plan to make sure that the sovereignty of the state does not get compromised in making sure that private sectors are held accountable? And how do you make sure that the private sectors that are held accountable follow the rules that the UN has given us? Because, like I mentioned, it's not that the UN can hold any sort of legal power over these private companies.
Exactly. So I'd like to restate clause 7. It urges the member states to make necessary changes and policies to hold their own private sector accountable. We are urging the member states to do those necessary changes. We are not asking the UN body to enact those changes. We are asking member states to do as accordance to their own policy.
Doesn't that encroach on the privacy of said private sectors?
No, it does not encroach on the privacy of sectors, because if the private sector are deploying any AI surveillance systems that are by default going against the humanitarian laws, it is mandated. It is an obligation of the member state to make sure that any private sector actor of their state is not cancelling out any humanitarian law.
I understand that it's an obligation, but my question is, how does it not encroach on the privacy?
I still can't understand.
If the government is responsible for, I guess, keeping these private sectors in check, how are they making sure that the privacy of these sectors are not encroached upon?
I believe government or the government of member states have been doing this since a long time, of making sure that the private sector is in check, not only in compliance with human rights laws, but also to ensure that they are complying with consumer laws, with national laws. So this has been being done since past few decades, and we are only adding an additional obligation or urging the states to make sure that their own country private sector factors are not going against human laws, human rights.
But don't countries like Italy and UK benefit from these private sectors supplying them with weaponry and machinery? And if so, why would they let go of their country and military secrets to keep these particular private sectors and private companies in check?
I would like to understand, how does military secrets come under this clause?
A lot of countries, especially like Italy and UK, outsource a lot of their machinery and weaponry, more than 60% of it, to private sector. My question is, if they are outsourcing most of it to these private sectors, how are they going to make sure that when they mandate the rules and when they keep these private sectors in check, they're also not letting go of their country secrets or their, I guess, national secrets?
And which subclause are you referring to with this question?
I'm referring to clause 7 as a whole because it's very vague in my opinion. It does not specify which particular sector or private sectors you're talking about.
So when it comes, we are not, when we mention private sector, we are not meaning it in a vague sense. We are broadening the entire aspect. Your focus is only on military, but AI is integrated right now in every sector, in every aspect of life. So we are urging the states to make sure that the private sector has mandatory human rights due diligence obligations. So regardless of which sector they are from, and they have to have human rights due delegations in place to make sure that any AI system that they are developing are in compliance with human rights.
But the majority of it falls under military operations, no?
Delegate no more follow-ups. Any amendment you can send via chat, alright? Next, Delegate of Ghana.
followed by delegate of Ethiopia.
Under the principle of legality, no one may be criminally punished unless the conduct was clearly defined as a crime in advance. Now 7b, we see civil, administrative and criminal liability. What is crime for you may not be a crime for someone else. How do you defend that statement, that word criminal liability?
And that is why the liability is placed on human rights violation and not state policies.
Yeah, but what is criminal liability?
Human rights are universal in nature. I don't understand which criminal liability are you talking that is against human rights.
Delegate, kindly don't interrupt another
sorry.
delegate.
Apologies.
Let him finish.
Apologies.
Criminal liability may be in different forms on human rights itself. What is crime for you? Did you define that in the draft?
Could you give me an instance where a criminal liability from one perspective is not a criminal liability from another perspective on human rights?
It's the states, not perspective. For one state, criminal liability for one human right may be different.
I believe that is what your point states, that you are saying that a criminal liability from one end might not be a criminal liability from another end on human rights. Could you give me an example for it?
Maybe cutting a tree may not be a criminal liability on human rights for one nation, but maybe on other green nations. How do you defend that?
It might not be a criminal liability in your nation or in any other nation or member state, but
maybe
we have I'm sorry, please let me finish. We have a right to sustainable and green environment. So I believe cutting down a tree is directly violating that right.
But criminal liability.
Would you just agree with it that cutting down a tree is a direct violation for a right to safe environment?
Yes, that is
then settles.
But member states may not agree to that. Why cutting a tree is a violation of a right for some states?
I believe these rights are universal and have been signed in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
No.
Delegates, get to the point.
Yes,
This is not a...
you can send it by check.
for cutting
I have one more, can I ask? 10, clause 10, reaffirms the obligation of member states to protect journalists, civil society actors and human rights defenders. Who are journalists, who are civil society actors and who are human rights defenders? There is no international definition for the three words.
I believe who are journalists, who are civil society actors and who are human rights defenders.
Yes.
Each member state has almost an universal definition for it.
No, there is no international definition.
But I believe almost all member states have
Their own
similar
definition, yes.
similar definition, even if their own, but in context similar definitions.
Delegates, for further reference, we would just suggest that in DRs, make sure that when you're wording anything, you are effectively defining them or at least have a definition for them.
Yes, you can put it in footnotes.
If there's an exception, there's an addition, put it in brackets, put it in footnotes.
Okay. Next, delegate of Ethiopia.
Delegate
Delegate.
of Pakistan, you have been recognized.
Yeah, delegate of Pakistan. And then Britain. Congo and Macedonia. Go.
Clause 7. Clause 7.
Delegates.
I would like to point out the vaguity of the word artificial intelligence and which corresponding to private sector actors involved in artificial development. What does artificial development here mean? Because the word AI is a big umbrella of lot of technology. It has LLM models, ChatGPT, DeepSeek, and it has war surveillance technology. It has motion capture technology. So the vaguity of the artificial the word is. I would recommend an amendment to that. Well,
Okay, that's an amendment.
yeah, amendment, and also I would like to ask them what does it even mean?
Okay.
So it's a big umbrella, right?
Yes.
So you are asking if what does artificial intelligence?
Yeah,
Sponsors?
exactly. What does
Other
it mean?
sponsors want to answer that? Give them a break. And I would like to ask, what is it that exactly that you want to know?
What does? Okay, I'll state again. Clause 7 urges state to regulate private sector actors involved in artificial intelligence development and deployment, right? So what does artificial intelligence mean here? Specifically, which kind of artificial intelligence? Because because if you want to ban ChatGPT, it's I think it's not reasonable, right?
Well, we're not talking about banning anything
Yeah,
over
exactly,
here.
exactly. You are not. There's a lot of vagueness in it. The
Well,
word
we're
has a
talking
lot
about
of
regulation over here, delegate. We're not talking about any decision that
don't you have to be very specific? Which kind of technology you wanna put a framework on? Because if you wanna put a framework on, say, ChatGPT or DeepSeek, it's an LLM model. It's an LLM model. What? How could it violate a human right? How could DeepSeek violate a human right?
Well, any type of AI that is not regulated is harmful. Delegate, we are planning to put a
Delegate?
framework on every type of AI that we have.
Delegate, I would like to ask one question. Is it vague or not? Is it vague or not? You just answer me one question. Because the word, again, like third time I'll repeat again. The word AI origins from 1970s. So if you wanna if you wanna encapsulate all the 50 years of history of AI in that word means, I don't know what does even mean. If you want to ban the academic research of AI, if you want to ban Gemini AI, what?
Let them answer.
So I would like to ask the delegation of Ethiopia to rephrase your question, because as far as we the sponsor see, the clause.
One second. There's nothing to rephrase here. It's
No,
a sort of amendment. He just voiced it. Now let's go for the amendment directly.
No,
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I'm just quoting him. I'm quoting the delegation of Ethiopia. They asked what kind of bans we are trying to impose, but I don't see the word ban in clause 7. And coming to the definition of your exact words, the delegation has said the ban of artificial intelligence. Coming down to artificial intelligence development and deployment, we mean every development and deployment through every models. But since the delegation of Ethiopia has raised this concern, we would like to amend and include all of that definitions.
Okay.
All right, thank
Be
you.
more specific, right? Thank you.
So in the sixth clause, subclause, limiting data collection is what is strictly necessary and proportionate. So in terms of necessary, that means the state or the UN can collect the data, and if in case the state is going through a national security, that means the data can be used and sourced to the countries, to the states.
I would like to state the clause 6. It calls upon member states to enforce strict data protection standards by limiting data collection to what is strictly necessary and proportionate. So, this clause directly calls to each and every member state to make sure that whatever mass surveillance systems they are launching are only used to collect what is strictly necessary and proportionate on the grounds of human rights.
Yeah, but the term necessary prohibits it, right? If there is a big country and the term necessary just doesn't allow that. If
So
there is a
when we say necessary, let's say a big country, I would like to take the example of India. Such a big country, it will need to maintain a record of its citizens. There are census that happens in each and every country. So in the census, they collect private data, personally identifiable data, but it is only limited to what is necessary to identify a person for national security reasons. Apart from that, the state that should not collect more than that. This particular clause calls for member states to make sure that they are collecting only the necessary and proportionate data.
Delegate, that's it, no follow-ups. Delegate of Congo, last POI.
So, in the clause 7, you have mentioned that states to regulate private sector actors involved in AI development. So, what jurisdictional mechanism ensures accountability of multinational AI companies?
Well, it's the states that are regulating the private sector actors. So if a private sector...
Yeah, what I'm asking is...
Can I finish my point? So let's say if let's pick the example of ChatGPT. It is a multinational AI, but it is based out of US. So US has to make sure that it is mandating mandating human rights obligations on ChatGPT, because since it is coming out of their soil, they are mandated to make sure all of these frameworks are in place.
Okay, what if the state heads are corrupted? State representatives.
Then that's a personal matter of the state.
No, you are drafting the resolution.
The draft
You're saying-
urges, the draft.
Yes,
So-
delegate. It's a very hypothetical situation. I mean, it's a real situation, but what exactly are you asking?
What I'm asking that if
Go ahead.
they are allowing private sector players in the government, so there is a high chance.
Ask.
So there is a high chance of, government taking bribe from them.
Could you pardon me from the beginning?
That's a subjective issue, right?
Delegate,
Okay.
that is a very subjective issue.
Right. So now we'll be looking for for and against speeches.
Oh, no, delegate, we won't be entertaining any more POIs.
Wrap up the session soon. So delegates who will be giving the for and against speeches, please raise your placard.
Delegate of Malawi, what will be your stance? Okay.
And delegate of Cuba? Okay.
All right.
Starting with delegate of Malawi. Keep it under 60 seconds, please.
Thank you, Chair. The delegation must oppose the draft resolution sponsored by the United Kingdom and others, as it is fundamentally flawed in both evidence and equity. First, the call for an immediate moratorium on a real-time biometric identification ignores ground reality. According to the World Bank ID 4D initiative, over 1.1 million people lack legal identifications. And biometrics are often primary gateway to food distribution, healthcare access, and cash transfers in global south. A blanket moratorium.
And delegate. 30 seconds. Okay.
Without alternative, risks inclusion rather than rights protection. The resolution ignores global asymmetry. UNCTAD shows Africa imports nearly 90% of its AI technologies, while over 90% of AI patents are held by OECD countries. The draft regulates users while shielding producers, entrenching
Thank you,
inequality.
delegate. Delegate of Cuba.
An algorithm can calculate a path but can never understand the value of the people walking in it. We often treat artificial intelligence as a collection of code, but the reality is far more personal. Every algorithm and every lens affects a human life, students' privacy, journalists' safety, citizens' right to work freely without being tracked like a data point. Today, we aren't just debating policy. We are defending the very idea of human dignity in a digital age by demanding transparency and moratorium on mass surveillance. We aren't slowing down the process. We are ensuring the process actually serves us rather than controlling us. Let's commit to a future where technology is built on foundation of rights, not just data. Let's ensure that power of the machine never outweighs the fundamental freedom of the individual. Because a society that is always watched is never truly free.
Thank you, delegate. We open the floor for amendments. Please send your chips immediately. Okay, delegates. First amendment to 3B. They wish to change it from independent human rights impact assessments demonstrate full compliance with international law to independent human rights impact assessments, including UNESCO's Readiness Assessment Methodology, RAM, demonstrate compliance with international law. Friendly? Great. Clause 10. They wish to properly define journalists and civil society actors. Okay, two friendly amendments. And also 8A, eliminate the word authoritative. Unfriendly. Clause 8A, eliminate the word authoritative.
Honorable Chair, shall we announce clause 8?
I'll read it. Clause 8A, elaborate authoritative international guidelines on right-based artificial intelligence governance. So they wish to remove the word authoritative.
No explanation, no explanation. Only clause 8. We want to start from the clause 8 to give a background. So clause 8 invites the office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights to elaborate authoritative international guidelines on rights-based artificial intelligence governance.
Delegates, please vote. All the delegates who wish to remove the word authoritative, please raise your placard. This clearly passes.
So you have one unfriendly amendment and two friendly.
Okay, the next amendment is strike clause 4, subclause A. Unfriendly. So we'll be putting that to vote. All the delegates for removing subclause A from clause 4. Raise your placard. No, this does not pass.
So this amendment states for substitution. Clause 5. So it states automated systems impacting fundamental rights remains subject to human review. It wants to be changed to automated systems impacting fundamental rights remain subject to appropriate and context-sensitive human oversight. All right. Thank you, delegates.
This amendment is for the removal of clause 7. Removal of clause 7. Why can I see it? Yes. It is there. I have it in front of me, delegates, don't worry. It's there. Yes, you delegate. So this amendment is for the removal of clause 7. Friendly, unfriendly, unfriendly. Delegates, please vote for the removal of clause 7. Raise your placards. This passes.
This is an changing clause. It states clause 1, close the lawful but abusive loophole.
We have multiple removal clauses. We'll be taking only 2 more. Removal of clause 3, subclause B. Okay, is it? Yes. Removal of clause 5, subclause B.
Meaningful explanations of decisions affecting rights are provided.
Unfriendly. We'll be putting that to vote. All the delegates who wish to remove subclause B of clause 5, please raise your placards. This fails. Alright.
There is a minor amendment stated, which is a non-substantive amendment. We ask them to please capitalize the subclauses. Capitalize the subclauses.
And delegates also remove the heading operative clauses.
Yes.
Delegates, you can please sit down. Please send the edited drafts immediately.
Okay, delegates, we are going to give you 5 minutes to make the changes and send the PR.
And then you'll be entering into voting.
Yeah, kindly maintain the decorum in the room, delegates. Thank you.
Please do not take any extra time. We just have 10 minutes. Delegates, please maintain silence. Delegates, please come back soon. We will be beginning.